Hi. In last week's history video, we discussed how the Truman administration was brilliant in the late 40s and early 50s for setting up the doctrine of containment of the Soviet Union that really animated American foreign policy until it worked in 1991 and the Soviet Union collapsed. Now I'd like to explore the ancillary of that, which was the administration's brilliant economic policy that saved the global economy and really set the world on its current pace. It began in 1944 when John Maynard Keynes, representing Britain, and Harry Dexter White, representing the United States, got together in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, and designed the financial system of the world that is still in effect. They set up the IMF and the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, and penciled in that a European would always head the IMF, an American would always head the World Bank. The IMF designed to stabilize the global economy and the World Bank to facilitate economic development. And implicit in their agreement was a statement that the dollar would be the global currency and that all countries would mark their currency to the dollar. Then, as it became evident that the Soviet Union was intent on dominating Eastern Europe and had greedy eyes on Western Europe, and the Communist Party voting percentages in Western Europe countries rose to alarming proportions, a third of the vote in Italy and a quarter of the vote in France, Secretary of State George Marshall, with the encouragement of President Truman, launched the Marshall Plan, which was a $13 billion program of aid to Europe, the equivalent of $150 billion in current money. So it would be as if the United States took its entire Medicare budget or Medicaid budget and spent it all on Europe. It was a gigantic amount of money. Winston Churchill called it the most selfless and least sordid action of any nation in world history. And the Marshall Plan basically set up funding and told the Europeans, you figure out how to spend it. You propose projects, you figure out what your development strategy is, and we'll provide the money for you. And this was just an unbelievable thing that the United States did. So by a combination of setting up NATO, a military alliance, and the doctrine of containment to encircle and contain the Soviet Union, and then going in with the Marshall Plan and the Global Economic Bretton Woods program, they really stabilized the world and made possible the free world that we basically have today. That was put to the test twice during the Truman presidency. Once was when the Soviet Union closed off all routes going to Berlin. And the question was, would we shoot our way through East Germany to get to Berlin that was entirely enclosed by the Eastern Zone that was the Soviet-controlled part of Germany? And Truman decided not to, but instead he decided to supply Berlin by airlift. And all of the coal and all of the food that the Berliners lived off was delivered by the United States and Allied airplanes in a continuous stream of cargo planes. Ultimately, when they couldn't starve Berlin out, Stalin gave up. The other, of course, was the Korean War, when North Korea invaded South Korea. And President Truman stepped up and got the United Nations to condemn it and to order a police action against it. By the way, the Korean War police action, we see it as the American war. But in fact, the nations of the world played an enormous part in it. I was just reading about the events of 1951 in Korea, where the British and even the Belgians and the Luxembourgers had a great deal to do with containing the Chinese army advance. It wasn't just the United States. So the Truman administration, the advisors, the financial guys, the State Department people, are worthy of just an unbelievable measure of gratitude for the wisdom with which they governed from 1945 to 1952. Thanks for watching.